So what I'm thinking is I actually want to see what's going on within event. Is it actually an event of command observed event, and does it have the correct stuff routed? Well, that's very interesting. So let's check that out. Let's do a quick debug thing called vordump, and let's actually say vordump event for me. Now the event will get console logged within here, and as you can see, for some reason, user ID is null, topic ID is null, private command is null. That's because stuff isn't routed correctly yet, and that's because the serializer doesn't understand yet that it's getting within the data tab of the the JSON file. So this is fine, this is not, because if we do it like this properly, it works because of auto routing. Must define a type. There we go. You must define a type for comment. It doesn't say it doesn't know what to do with comment. And this is the error I was expecting actually. But since we say data, it actually bypasses it, and then it says it's successful, but there is actually no data at all. So that's weird, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to fix that. So what I want to do here is I want not to have the whole event. I want to actually have the data of the event that's getting parsed. So we are going to do this. I have this event over here, and I want it to actually how do I say this? This is a bit complex. I want the data of the event, not the event itself. So in my test, I want this to let's say I want this to return where's my I want this to return hi Danny. So let's say hi Danny, and let's just handle this for now as a string, obviously. And for now, my only purpose is to actually get this to say hi Danny with using the data from the event itself. So we're doing that by going back to our commented data store handler and saying, you know what, this thing, not only does it have these properties, but we will have a public function get data, and it will return $data for us. Also, we have a public function construct, and when it creates this object is what we're saying, then this data is $data. I'm not sure if we need this right now. If we don't need it, I'm going to put it away, but it might be. And these three are not here yet because this object doesn't know about the existence of all those stuff. So my mistake in here was this event object only has the data, but what's in the data, yeah, that's not known right now. This event doesn't care about the data itself. It only cares about that it has data. So this thing over here will have $data is event get data, like that. And we will again deserialize this. This is going to be the tough part for, I think, you all to understand. But command is this serializer deserialize, and then we're going to do this serializer. Serialize, I believe. And then $data to a JSON. And we're going to deserialize it towards a comment entity. Class, and it's JSON again. I sent it to you in Discord. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, okay. We have a couple of things to explain right here. I'm going to put in one more thing, and then I'm going to explain everything what we just did. Here we go, here we go. Because it's a bit more easier to explain when it's written than when it's not. There we go. All right. So, one more thing. All right, so let me explain this all real quick. What I made is I made a construct function. The construct function is a magic function. A magic function is defined by 2 underscores before the function name. And this magic function is called by PHP when creating this object. So when at command to data store handler is being made, if I, for example, call somewhere new at command to data store handler, like that, then it expects me now to put in a serializer because this function is basically this function. So it expects me to put a serializer interface now in it. So that's what construct does. I want to be able to use a serializer in this function. So I demand when this function is created that it gives me a serializer. It puts the serializer that I get from the magic method in the local class variable. So it's being over here. It sets this is equals this. So this over here is the same variable as this. And then we get to use it in this method. So now, because this serializer is getting over here, and we can use this to actually deserialize and serialize this again. What I'm doing right here is I'll put this into steps. First of all, I'm actually going to serialize again the data from this event. So basically we get this event, it's a value object, and now we are getting the data from the event itself. The reason we do this is because the event itself is what's called the envelope, and the data within the data is actually the message within the envelope. So events are always an envelope and the node within the envelope. What does command class? Command class is a reference to the name of the to the namespace where the command entity lives. So we're going to, after we have serialized back the data towards a JSON structure, we immediately going to deserialize that JSON back towards a comment entity. So this is like the way we use to actually deserialize the data itself towards the comment entity. And the comment entity is what we're going to create right now. So we have a folder called entity. We're going to make a class right here. And we're going to call this comment. Right there. So this comment, where are we? We are over here. is going to link towards this one. Seems like you are passing the serializer to a new serializer. Is there a reason you need to hand it off, like instead just direct referencing it? Yes, the reason we use this inside of this is because the data that's returned over here we are not able to deserialize this data yet, because now it's an object and we want this object to be JSON in order to deserialize it again from JSON towards the entity. I don't know if there's a method to actually do a different format and actually use an object. So maybe you can actually use object and then you can just do $data. But I don't know if that exists, and that's not how we do it at work. So I haven't been, since this works for me, I leave it at this. But if there's a better solution, then yeah, I have no objections into using that. The important thing is that we are going to use the data itself, which is in our test file. Literally this is the data. We are going to deserialize this data towards our command entity. So in the command entity, we actually do have the private $user ID, private topic ID, private comment. This thing will also probably have setters and getters, but not right now because we don't need it yet. There we go. So if I'm doing this right now, let me put a void. No, wait, hang on. What we wanted to do for our test case over here is actually make it say, hi, Denny. That's what we expect in this test. If we run the test right now, obviously the test will fail. You must define a type for data. This is the perfect error that I wanted to show, because now we need to actually define data towards our serializer. Our serializer doesn't understand shit right now, because we're not telling it anything. We're telling, hey, dude, deserialize for us data, event get data towards a command entity. But it doesn't understand what data exactly is. So it wants us to configure it. And we're doing that by actually make a configuration file for a JMS Serializer. So let's say config. This is something. This is also the reason why we're not. This is a config extra config file, and our convention is to put it right where we use it. So let's say value objects. Oh, oops, shit. Hang on. And then we have a at command upserted event. Command upserted event.xml. Yeah. The name you entered looks like a file name. Do you want to create a file named instead? Yeah. Did I do directory? Oh, I guess PHP Storm is very smart and I'm not. So we do this. This is my sneak peek thingy. So we have our app. I'm not using the namespace bnfhara yet. So we have our app and we go to application. No, we go to domain. Yeah, domain. Value object. And our class is called command upserted event, and we tell the serializer, okay, this class command upserted event, this thing has a property called data, and this data is, I think, a string. Yeah, it's a string. And when we run the test now again, it doesn't work because we haven't told the serializer that it actually needs to look to this file in order to check where it needs to go. So that's where this comes in. We have this configuration YAML file for the serializer, and what I want to do is I want to have this metadata open up with some directories, and one directory I'm going to copy paste right now. Oh, oops. Wow, this is beautiful. Here we go. Hang on. Tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap. Okay, there we go. App. Domain. Value. Object. And this is hang on. App crap. Application config value object event. I probably should make a serializer folder in here and put that in there so we know it's actually part of the serializer and not something else. So config serializer / event value object, and it's like that. Oh, oops. So what we basically did right now is we told the serializer, hey, if you have anything with this namespace, so the namespace is app domain value object, anything with this namespace, and our event actually has this namespace, app domain value object. If you get anything with this namespace, you know, if you look for configuration for it, then look in this directory for the configuration for it. That's what we told the serializer right now. So if everything works, the file YAML doesn't contain valid YAML indentation problem. Line 5 near metadata. Oh, did I make a mistake? I indeed made a mistake. Oh my god. How can I? Is this better? It should give us a different error. Oh, it didn't give us a different error. Okay, now I am officially lost. So you must define a type for command observed event data. Okay, so now what I want to know is why does this not work? Command observed event .xml. Oh, it's because my cache isn't cleared yet. I need to clear the cache. Sorry, cache. Symfony has cache for me, which means if I run tests, then it will think, you know what? I can save some stuff you probably don't need yet. So let me actually delete the cache right here, if it allows me. I think it will find it after that. And it's gone. All right, so work with me now and work. As you can see, I get a different error, so it definitely was cache. So if all fails, it's always cache. All right. So now the serializer knows that this does exist. And we get a different error message over here. We get an error message, array to string conversion. So this thing over here, why am I getting... Oh yeah, obviously. Oh, this is another thing. Good point. I want the serializer in this. So I'm going to have to use the serializer for this test. All right. But my application itself is not a test. So I have to define that. Serializer. Right there. And that's where services come in. So I talked about solid design principles, and solid is single responsibility, open close principle, list of substitution, interface segregation, and dependency injection. And actually, the dependency inversion is what we're going to be using right now. We're going to inverse our dependencies by actually injecting our dependencies. And that's something techy, and it basically means that since this, where are we? This handler needs a serializer, but we're not going to so easily, let's say, make a new make a new handler everywhere and inject the same serializer using the construct method. What we're actually going to do is we're going to tell Symfony, hey, if you are using or making a add command to data store handler, use this as your service. Use this as your serializer. That's what we're going to configure right now. So we have the services.yaml. We are going to create a service from the add command to data store handler. So bear with me. App. There we go already. App application slash app application add command to data store handler. This is our class namespace. We're going to define it as a service right now. So Symfony automatically knows that we're talking about this class because we specified this namespace. So we want to define arguments, and we're saying your argument called $serializer is actually a link to JMS Serializer. Now, the fact is, this is another service, and we tell Symfony that this is another service by putting that this mark before it. It's basically the same that we do in our test. We're actually saying, hey, get the service called JMS Serializer, put the kernel, get the service container, and get the JMS Serializer service, and put it in this. We're actually saying that for our application as well. Hey, make a service of this and inject the other service as an argument for this. And coincidentally, this variable is the same as this variable. So now we will use the proper one. We run the test, see what it does. Still getting that array to string conversion, which sounds kind of logical. We want to... It says array to string conversion. Maybe I made a mistake with the serializer config. Give me a sec. Oh, I'm a moron. Yep, I'm a moron. So I made a mistake with the serializer here. Of course, this type over here is not a string. It wants to convert this array to a string, but this type data is not a string. This data is actually not just data, it's actually an entity. So this should be application. Give me a second. Application. No. Domain. Entity. Comment. Because our data within the event is actually a type of a comment. And now, when we run the test, it doesn't know how to map this. So it will fail, or it says, hey, you know what? Maybe it automatically knows that comment is a comment and user ID is a user ID. So maybe it doesn't fill, but it actually fills. Good. That's what we want because we want control. So now we're going to do the exact same thing for the serializer for this. So we create a new file. No, I'm sorry. Create a new folder called entity. And we have a file called comment.xml. And then we have this same thing over here. There we go. Comment. Oh, oops. Entity. Command. And we have a property named user ID, which actually for now is a string. I'm going to make this a unique ID later. We have a topic ID. And we have a comment. So, this stuff is all a string. This stuff is working. The only thing we need to do is tell JMS Serializer again that not for value objects, sorry, value objects. Value object. Let's say for entity, you actually go to the entity folder. The reason I'm doing this is because in domain-driven design, there's actually a difference between an entity and a value object. And the difference between an entity and a value object is a value object is basically a dollar bill when you're buying a lollipop or anything. When you're buying something, a value object is like a dollar bill. But for the bank, a dollar bill actually has a serial number, and every dollar bill is unique. So per context, an object can be a value object or an entity based on the significance of it. So for us, a event, I don't care what the ID is for a specific event. I just care that it's an event. So the event is a value object for me. However, my comment gets an ID for its own, and I want to, in my microservice, I want to identify that comment with that specific ID, so that's why it's an entity. And entity, domain, entity. Here we go. Entity. And here we go. So, same shit, different day. It should be defined right now. We must define a type. Of course, we're getting that cache problem again. So let me actually clear the cache. Let's hope that's it. That it is that this time. Delete. Let's do this again. Here we go. And let's run this again. And now we get actually a very good message, because now our test actually goes all the way through and the test fails because it's actually expecting to return hi Denny, but it gets null back. So our function right now says null back. Shit, that's not what we want, right? So we go back to our code and we say, hey, this works. This works. Probably it works right now if we use a var dump comment, and we run this test again. We will probably see that we get a comment, and the user ID isn't working, the topic ID isn't working, but for some reason the comment itself is working. And I have no clue why yet. Because. So the end of my test basically is that once I do return dollar comment, let's say get comment. Oh, Why am I not allowed to? Wow, that's awful. This comment. Let's go. For now, let's actually do it like this. I'm not allowed to make this method, so I'm going to delete it right away. But if I do it like this right now, it should actually make the test function. Yeah, we as you can see, the test works, so that's good. So our serializer works right now for the comment itself. I have no idea yet why the topic ID and the user ID don't work, but we'll figure that out in a second. I'm a moron. We use in our convention we use in events we actually use this, but our serializer automatically routes this syntax towards camel casing for an entity. As you can see, right now it works. So this is just a wrong on my part. I made this event wrong.